Hello, everyone. Time being 7:03 p.m. Today is Thursday, March 18th. I would like to call the Abington Capital Planning Committee meeting to order. All members are present with the excuse of Marty Go Lightly. First item on our agenda. Excuse me. Before I go on to the agenda, I do want to say we have a couple of guests with us tonight. We have with the school department Superintendent Peter Schaefer and Assistant Superintendent Felicia Michella. And joining us a little later from the Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks, we have Joseph Lapointe. So let's jump right into our agenda. New business, I forgot to do it last time. I did want to introduce our new member, Ellen Delaney. She was just appointed and sworn in, appointed by the selectmen and sworn in by the town clerk to join our committee. So Ellen, welcome. You want to introduce yourself or say anything?
No, I've lived in Abington for almost my entire life and I love our town, and the more involved I can get, I'm planning on it. I'm retired, so I can do it.
Wonderful. And I did want to just introduce everyone on our committee. Myself, I'm Alex Haggerty. I'm the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee. I also serve as the vice chairman of the Board of Health. And then anyone else, jump right in. Introduce yourselves.
Hi, Ellen. You know me, Tim Chapin, Board of Selectmen. I'm appointed on this board from the Board of Selectmen.
I think I know everybody except for Joe and Greg.
Yeah, Joe and Greg, we were also on the Finance Committee meeting, and they were looking for some members from there to join here, so we both raised our hands.
Yes, I watch you regularly.
Yep.
Well, nice to meet you.
Oh, same here.
Nice to meet you too. They all the smart people are on here, so they needed one dumb guy, so they invited.
You undercut yourself, Greg.
It's just a good introduction.
Nice to meet you. I don't know what you look like, but
You don't want to know. I mean, even my little phone thing breaks when I turn it on.
actually, I think I have seen you at the Finance Committee meetings.
That's me.
Peter Schaefer, School Superintendent.
Hello. We have met.
We have. Good to see you again.
All right. So, and we also, Steve Wakeland's also our vice chairman of the Capital Planning Committee, and also Chris Coyle, a member at large of our committee as well. So thank you. All right, let's jump right into business. All right, discuss proposed 5-year capital project and equipment plan. We're going to jump right into reviewing of school department capital needs with Superintendent Peter Schaefer and Assistant Superintendent Felicia Michella. Let me get up the school department capital plan on screen here. Share that, bear with me. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So I will turn it over to Peter and Felicia.
So I want to start by thanking you for giving us the time to walk through this and explain it. And also, I want to thank the chair and all the members of your committee for the work you're doing, because obviously capital assets for all the departments are important. And how do you prioritize these things coming from all these different departments? And I know you're probably earning a lot of money sitting on this committee for all the time you're spending on it for the good of the community. And but as you look down the road for the future of Abington, this is work that's important to the citizens in the community. So I can walk through these things with you, but I want to, if I could, I want to just I'll give you a couple of sentences and explain. I want to start by saying that these are not in a priority order, but I want to explain why they're not in a priority order. Number one, the boiler replacement at the Beaverbrook Elementary School. So that's a boiler that was put in the mid 80s. So it's it's not beyond its usable lifetime because we're using it. It's been well maintained and it's functioning, but it's getting to the end of its life. And we would rather be thoughtful about replacing it than do it in an emergency situation in January at a higher cost. And as we look closer at the boiler replacement, it could potentially be eligible for an MSBA reimbursement project if we filed for a green project that would help pay. So the state would help pay for it. But it's really, this is new to our list this year. And as we further considered this, we realized that it's more than the boiler. It's also the univent systems in the classroom and the heat and the unit and the whole system that runs throughout the entire building. So it would be something that would be better done in a longer term study to make sure we get a thorough estimate and understanding on the scope of what would be done to button that up. It's a building with the roof is about 20 years old. The windows, Felicia, about how old are the windows?
15.
About 15.
13.
The building envelope is tight. And we just want to keep that building thoughtfully running. So I'd want to come back at this maybe in another year and request that we do a more comprehensive study, because I'd hate to replace the boiler and yet have the piping throughout the building not be addressed at the same time. I just think it's a more thoughtful approach. I want to, do you want me to keep going or answer questions as I go, or?
Does any-
So, sorry, so are you suggesting that even though it's on here, we may want to hold off?
Yes.
Okay,
Because although we can't get all of the parts for it because of the age of the system, we do feel confident and comfortable that we can keep it running. We're not looking at anything at any given day. I could be wrong, but best estimates are that we'll be okay for another year or two here. We're not in a crisis situation. But as we look at all of the buildings that we're responsible for, we want to make sure that we put things on this list for consideration before they're an emergency. So that's why we included this.
no, that makes sense. And that was my follow-up question, but you just answered it, right? So of course, we'd never hold your feet to the fire, but does it feel like it could go one more year? And it sounds like you're saying just that, right? I mean, who
Right.
knows? It could fall apart tomorrow, but it looks like it could go one more year.
And I want to give all of the recognition to Jason Lynn, the person who keeps our entire system alive. If you ever had to be stranded on a desert island and you can only bring one thing, you'd want to bring Jason Lynn, because he just makes things work.
And who is Jason Lynn? I'm not familiar with the name.
Director of maintenance.
Oh, nice. Great.
So he has looked at this. He's worked with the boiler company. He's the kind of person that when the boiler company comes to fix something, he's kind of standing on their shoulder to see how they're doing it so that we can do it ourselves. Very frugal. He knows, I'm not going to blame Jason if he's wrong about this boiler either, but this information comes from
I
Jason.
pushed
obviously,
the
in his work.
my thing off.
Okay. No,
No.
that sounds good. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenge we have this year is that there's a lot of things coming in, and I don't think we're gonna be able to do it all from our preliminary, feedback. So
Yeah.
anything that we feel comfortable pushing out a year would be great, but we certainly don't want to push something out and then regret it.
Should I pause or move on?
Could you just talk more about you think that that we can get a grant for it? How
So-
confident is that?
Really confident, but there's a whole process that goes behind it in terms of doing an assessment, and Felicia would be working on a grant with MSBA. It would be something that, depending on how it's paid for, would go out for a vote, and depending on how big the number is, as a for a green project through the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Peter,
Thank you.
how full is Beaver Brook these days?
I was actually going to come to that as a topic. So at the elementary level, we're not overcrowded. We're tight. We do demographic studies every single year. They check the birth rate. They take the number of building permits that are pulled in town, and they give us estimates on what we can project and expect in the future. The estimates are that we're going to be okay with our current infrastructure and buildings, and yet we are seeing an increase in population in the schools. We saw it primarily at the secondary level, but we are seeing it at the Beaver Brook. So there are 2 more available classroom spaces that we could use if, next year we anticipate kindergarten and first grade are going to be large. And if that's true, we would need to hire people for that program. But there's room for them. If this continues for another, and we'll continue to do studies, but if the actuals continue to grow the way that they are, we might be looking at requesting the town consider a study for elementary classroom space. And that's just dependent on the number of school-age children that are going to report to us over the next couple of years.
Right.
The reason I was going to mention that later, and I want to jump around, is I was going to mention that when I mentioned the Woodsdale roof. Do you want me to jump to that? Because it's
Yeah. might as well.
segues. So the Woodsdale roof is something that's been on here for a while. Again, that's another mid 80s roof. That's a long time for a roof, for a flat roof in New England. We do repair it. We stay on top of it. We'll likely be fine for another year or 2. Talking to Jason about this, what he sees when our roofs get to the end of their lifetime is they begin to shrink at this point, and the seams begin to give all over and you get failures all over the roofing system. If we had a downburst and a hurricane or a tornado would have blown the roof off that building, it might. But I think we'll be okay for another, our estimates are that we'll be okay for another year or 2. This is another thing that could be a green repair project. And until we know where our population is going, again, we're tight, we're not overcrowded. I'd hate to pump dollars into this unless we knew what we might do with renovation or elementary school construction. That's the story of the Woodsdale roof, and that's why it's been on this capital list probably for the last 5 years. Again, we want to bring things forward before they fail, so we can get into a system of keeping up with them rather than coming to you all at once with, 3 roofs and 3 boilers and emergency situations. Questions about the roof? The painting at the Frollo, if absent any crisis in another place, it would be a good idea to get that done. The reason for that is that's going to need to get done. That's not reimbursable because of the abatement required. It's more expensive. There are other painting projects with buildings. I mean, it's like owning a house. I hate painting my house, but you got to keep up with it. Otherwise it becomes a mess. And if you can drive up the Frollo and look at it, you can see that it requires this work.
This is outside.
Yep.
painting.
This is outside.
Is the Frollo a historic building?
Great question. It would have been if it weren't for a fire in the chemistry lab. I can't tell you when that happened. Back in the day, it was never rebuilt back to its original specifications, or at least that's the story that I was told. So I do not believe it's registered as any historical type of building. It's a beautiful building. We've got offices in there. We want to be responsible, to that as an asset. So, I mean, it's used. I think we've got maybe 3 or 4 rooms that aren't being used upstairs right now.
How's it being used, Peter?
Well, we have special education, the accounting office, payroll, my office, food service, Felicia's office.
Okay, the idea.
Sorry.
I get the idea.
We also have the basement now is really where Jason, that's where he does his prefabrication for the maintenance projects. So when doors or windows or anything needs to be replaced, shelves need to be built, all the construction takes place in the basement of the Frollo. The drama program uses the what was the music area for storage area. And you obviously know that it's the home of the football locker rooms, baseball locker rooms.
Yeah, yeah.
The gymnasium is used every single day during the inclement weather for pickleball. And then it's used in the evenings and on the weekends for basketball, youth sports. Upstairs, we've given the VFW an office and a home. We've also, what else do we have upstairs? There's a maintenance office. That's it, I think.
And I know
Okay.
the health department was looking into maybe moving upstairs, perhaps moving from the town hall. So maybe neighbors soon.
We talk to them basically every day. So there's space available, if people in the community, in the town need to use it, that's, it's a town building.
North River Collaborative also has a classroom there. They do a program out of the Frollo that is a job training program. So students meet, special education students from neighboring communities and Abington meet at the Frollo, start their day there, having some instruction there, go and work in the community and then come back, have lunch and finish their day at the Frollo.
It's also where the Boys and Girls Club tried to launch a program, after school program at the end of last year, and then COVID hit. And I know there's some more interest in trying to get that going again.
Is the second floor handicapped accessible?
Nothing is truly handicapped accessible in that building, because even the ramp near the gymnasium area comes into a stairwell.
Oh.
So there are 4 steps, and what there is it's a Garaventer, a chair system. So someone with a disability can ride that Garaventer up those 4 steps to get in. We'll call it the middle floor, which you'd consider the second floor, because the first floor, the basement floor, is actually like mostly it's at ground level or below. We have the money in an account to remediate that somehow, to make it more accessible. The problem with that Garaventer is it doesn't handle the heavier electric wheelchairs, the weight of those chairs. So it is accessible, but it's not completely accessible.
Right.
And the delay in modifying that Garaventer is it's been around trying to find the right variance and the right way to do that. We've also looked at a lift out in front of the building. We've looked at ramping into that site. The problem with a ramp is it would extend to, Whitman, for crying out loud, because it would have to be so long. So there have been 3 different solutions between a lift, an elevator, and fixing the Garaventer. And it's been really challenging for us to find the right solution. If we're able, so just recently, the Garaventer company came up with a solution for us that we think may work within the last month or so, that they'd be able to modify the Garaventer. So we would be able to hopefully fix that and turn the remaining money back, but then only that middle floor would be completely handicap accessible.
Thank you.
Probably more than anybody wanted to know, but that's the whole story. Should I continue on?
Yes, please.
So, and I mean, the parking lot at the Beaver Brook, I can't tell you the last time it was done. I can tell you, sorry. I can tell you it needs to get done. It's not a crisis, it's, to have it done. But if you don't keep after your paving projects, I mean, the job that was done around the Woodsdale, through Highway, you know, was wonderful. They did a great job on it. And, we just want to keep up so we don't lose, get too far behind on
Yep.
paving.
So question on that. So I know that John Stone was telling us about, repaving roads plan. Would this be something that kind of happens on its own, or could we piggyback off of that and try to get, the same company that's paving our roads to stop by and pave the parking lot?
I'd want to defer to John, to whatever the best way to approach that would be.
Okay.
Joe, I guess a question too, because Ralph Hamlin Lane, like, is that considered its own street in Abington? So would that be part of the street projects? Like, the road that leads down to Beaverbrook between that house and the VFW, whatever it is at the top there? Like, I wonder if that's one of the streets that John had on his list of 8 pages. Maybe it's almost like
John actually had Hancock and Lincoln Street, and yes, if he was to do paving for the parking lot, it would go under the same bid vendor that bid out for paving for the town.
So like, is this dollar amount kind of estimated based on a standalone, or?
That
How's
was, that dollar amount was actually given to us in consultation with John.
Okay. All right. Just seeing if we can piggyback and save a few bucks, but it sounds like you guys have already done that.
So that's why none of these are really we didn't put them in a priority. But hopefully you have a good understanding of why and what each one means.
Yeah, I mean, just based on the very little that I understand, it feels like the roof could be the one that could potentially, because you never know when you're going to get, a bad storm around here. It's been kind of crazy windy the last couple of weeks. So I don't know, just based on the tiny bit I know, it feels like the roof would be probably a higher priority, just because the last thing you want is a problem with your roof.
But we do, like I said, I want to be a responsible reporter to you. We do anticipate both the boiler and the roof are going to be okay for another year or two. And I'm just concerned about that, the number of actual elementary school kids we would see. I don't think it's not time to ask Abington to consider an elementary school, because we don't have the actuals and the data to support it. If it keeps going the way it's going, we're not going to have a choice but to ask the town to consider that.
And Peter, at the same time, you don't want to put $1.5 million into something that's not going to be used for more than a couple of years if all of a sudden that's needed, right?
Exactly.
If you can anticipate that.
Yeah, right. If you can kick it down, I guess for now, like kick it down, and maybe next year you have more information and things like that. So I think you told us, you told us at our meeting in January that if it was going to be one to get it done as soon as possible, it'd probably be number 2, it'd be the painting and lead abatement, right?
Right.
For now.
Because that's going to need to get done no matter what, eventually. That has the least amount of variables in it, in the parking lot. I mean, parking lot's not probably going anywhere.
Right. Yeah. So Alicia, is the 70, is that like from company or?
Yeah, so we last year had brought 3 vendors in just to give us their idea of what it would cost, because we really didn't have an idea.
Yeah.
Especially when you add the lead abatement piece in there. So this is an average based on we had a high, a low, we had one in the middle. This is the average of the 3.
Thanks.
Awesome. And forgive me, you probably mentioned it before. How old is the boiler?
Mid-80s.
Okay, so,
And I think it's also, it may be important, so the boilers at the Beaverbrook are steam boilers, which means that steam is much more corrosive. And so a forced hot air burner, not boiler, furnace, for example, could last a lot longer, but the water and the corrosiveness of a steam boiler, I mean, mid-80s is still a long time for a boiler, but that's part of the reason why this particular, a steam boiler, they don't last, 50 years. They corrode out. And like Peter was talking about, the whole heating plant system, it's steam. So there are steam leaks, and that Jason again is able to repair for us. But we do think we need a full analysis of the whole system.
okay. Any other further questions from the committee, or any comments from Felicia, Felicia, or Peter?
I have one.
Thank you again.
Actually, I have one comment, though. I mean, this is like the third or fourth roof in town that needs to be repaired. And Scott had mentioned at the last meeting about possibly bringing an engineer in. We just need to make certain that this gets added to the list of roofs.
Yes.
To at least get looked at, right, Steve? If
Right.
nothing else, yeah, have them look at all.
I personally think it would be a good idea to get them all grouped in together. Sonia, you're on with us, and I think it would be a better borrowing opportunity to include the 3 roofs and the windows in both locations, and get a better borrowing opportunity.
The roof, there's another opportunity though for the roof to be partially paid for through the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So I don't want to, I just don't want to forget that element there, because Felicia, about what percentage could they perhaps pay for?
Perhaps over 50%. But there is a whole process. It's similar to what we did for our other projects through MSBA. You do in this case, because it would be an accelerated repair project, you do a shortened feasibility study, you hire an architect, you put it out to bid, then you go to the town, and the town has to approve if you do borrow through and partner with MSBA. So although it's called accelerated repair, there is a significant process with MSBA before they guarantee the money, before they agree to partner with you, I should say.
So is that something that we can, let's just say we decide to hold off till next year. Is that a process we can pursue over the course of the year? And then when we come back next year and say, yes, we're going to do it, and we have the backing of the MSBA, or is it you have to get it approved first and then go to the MSBA?
So there's a very prescriptive process around MSBA. What they don't want you to do is say, hey, I think I'd like to be in your accelerated repair project. Would you partner with us? Oh, really? They want to know that the town is invested in the project before they agree to partner with you. So
Okay.
yes, there are absolutely steps we could take beforehand, but they would be somewhat limited until we knew we had the support of the town.
And so really that wouldn't happen until we had this come up in town meeting and the town voted to say yes. Is that fair?
It goes through a school committee process, it goes through a board of selectmen process, and then it would be, depending if it's a borrowing article or not, it would be a ballot article, and then you partner with MSBA.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to gauge if that means it's going to cost us 1.44 million, and we can come to the town and say, if we say yes, it's only going to cost us 700,000. Or do we come to the town and say, if we say yes, it may cost us 700,000, because then we got to finalize the process.
So with MSBA, and when we, for example, the school building project, the town has to approve the entire project amount, so 1.4 million, and then MSBA will reimburse you. So you put out the 1.4 million, for example, then MSBA reimburses you for 700,000.
But to your
Gotcha.
point, they're locked into that number. You know what you're
Yeah.
gonna get from
Right.
them.
I see. So it's not like we can say, it could qualify and then the town says yes, and then like, wow, they changed they decided not to, so now it's gonna cost us the full 1.4. At that point, you kind of have at least a rough idea that if it goes forward, they will support you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. You
Gotcha.
don't go to the town till you know that MSBA is going to partner with you.
Excellent. Yeah. That's a lot easier to swallow if you know that up to 50% will be reimbursed. So.
This is going to sound like a crazy question, but and obviously it might not all have to do with the schools, but everybody needs some sort of building maintenance or rebuild or a new building or whatever, new roofs. Is there a point where we could bring some of this stuff in-house? Again, it might sound crazy because maybe that's not possible for a city, but has anybody ever looked at bringing in people that might be able to do this, who work for the town and can continuously rehab these buildings that continuously need work?
Couldn't obviously answer that for the town. For the school department, we do bring in what we can to do as much work as we can. We don't have the capacity or the wherewithal to really manage construction projects or big renos, but we'll bring in electricians and carpenters and plumbers and contract their services.
Oh, but I mean like directly work for the town. Like, so we're just in your stuff right here, there's a good chance it's over $1 million just in this particular year, this one shot. Then we have the fire. And again, maybe the answer is no, you can't do it. But I don't know, like maybe if we had 5, 6, 10 employees that could do this, not that it might be cheaper, but it might cost the same thing and people might be able to get things done quick. I'm only taking this from the business end of it. When you get to a certain point where you're spending a certain amount of money, you bring things in-house so you can make more money. I understand the town's not making any money, but at some point you do have to, again, I don't know if you can do this in this particular instance or for the town or whatever, but bringing things inside usually helps save and be faster.
Greg,
Sounds like a Scott Lambiasi question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what Greg's saying, except that these aren't things that happen every year. All these buildings that we're talking about are 20, 30, 40-year buildings that now need attention. So we wouldn't have staff on a regular basis to take care of these things because we don't need it every year.
Yeah, I think you're right, Sue. It just feels like, and maybe to Greg's point, that the number of things that we've been, deferring over the years is starting to stack up. So there could be 5 to 10 years where these things come up and we're not able to address it, so we keep on pushing them off. So maybe, again, to Greg's point, I'm not sure it's even possible, but I'm willing to bet there'll be repairs next year and then the next 5 years as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Right, and then after that, there won't be anything. We're gonna update the buildings, and then what do you do with this staff? You just tell them, sorry, we're
Well, no,
laying you
because
off.
truly, you're saving a lot of, usually, again, I'm talking in a completely separate scenario, but usually on the business end of it, you're saving so much money that one, you can either do other projects, or two, there's always stuff to do. Like, for instance, I could name off things, the police siding, the roof in the for the chief for the fire. Again,
Yeah.
I could be way off. Maybe you need more than 10. Maybe you need 100 employees. I have no idea. It's just in business at a specific point, you bring things in-house because it ends up being less expensive. And if we continuously do this every 10 years and we get 5 years off, sometimes that cost of the 5 years saves you on the back end of the next 10 years. And you don't fire people, you don't lay them off. There'll still be stuff for them to do. It just won't be as large a project. Again,
Yeah.
it might be a rant. It just might not make any sense.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be a good discussion for the future. Definitely, maybe something the finance committee could talk about and with the town manager and assistant town manager as well. But that's another day. Any other questions or comments or concerns or anything from Peter or Felicia? On
All
the
set.
school capital plan?
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right, excellent. Well, I just want to say thank you to Superintendent Peter Schaefer and Assistant Superintendent Felicia Michella for joining us tonight to share your capital needs, your capital plan with us. Very much appreciated.
I thank you for your time, and also, Jason, I talked about Jason Lynn. One thing that Jason does communicate to me while he's on this call is how much Joe Lapointe has helped us and how closely they work together depending on situations. I just want to thank Joe for that publicly while he's here. So have a good night, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, you too. Thanks.
Thank you for
Peter.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll move on to our next agenda item. We have with us Superintendent of Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks, Joseph Lapointe, to review water capital needs. So, Joe, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
All right, let me share the screen. I will get up me here. I have it colorized. Right, so because it doesn't all fit in one screen, but can everybody see?
Yes.
All right, so yeah, the first column, or the second column, I should say, 2022, and then from there on. So let me know, Joe, if you need me to move anything.
Let's go. I think you're on 20,
All right,
23, maybe if you could.
all right, so this column, so 20.
Yep. I got 22 there.
All right, so 22, 23, 24. and
Yep.
25, 26.
So, on the water meter replacement, we usually do this every year, try to get as many meters as we can. I actually upped that this year in the articles to 75,000, just because we had the money. And it allows us to replace more meters. It's about $400, $350 per meter setup, so you don't really get that many meters for that amount of money, but that's why we try to do it. Supposed to replace the meters every 10 to 15 years, so it's kind of a revolving thing. And where we have the money in the undesignated, we usually put it in it as an article. That way, if we put it into my budget, the budget would go up by that amount, and that would have to reflect on the rates. So it's a way we can keep the rates where they are. The backhoe lease payment. We bought a new backhoe. I think this is the third year lease payment on that, $30,000. After the 5 years, we'll own that. We'll probably get another 15 years out of it. The hydrant replacement program, we try to do $5,000 to buy a hydrant, $2,500 to buy a hydrant. So we try to do approximately 12 a year, take the older ones out, put the new ones in. Some get hit. Those all come out of my regular budget, like a replacement if it's already existing. Treatment plant upgrades, $100,000 each year. This is a matching amount from the town of Rockland every year on the capital plan. So hopefully over the next 5 years, we'll put close to $1 million into the treatment plants. Replacement of the 2001 dump truck, $75,000 with a matching amount from the town of Rockland. It'll be a joint truck. We all work together now, both Abington and Rockland. It's a joint waterworks. So all the construction crews are one crew now. It used to be two, Rockland and Abington.
Yep.
But now we've all in one building. We all Instead of having 4 guys in each town, we have 8 guys that cover both towns on the distribution end. Also, not on the capital plan, I have other articles that we put in from the undesignated balance for this year. If you want me to go through them, I can.
Go right ahead.
So one article we had to put in was a sick time buyback. We have 2 employees retiring. Would end up being $35,121. Second article is a cross-connection survey. This is DEP regulated. We have to do every year. Backflow testing in any business that could contaminate our water. If the water backflowed into our system, we have a company come out and they inspect all the backflows. They have to do tests on them. I think we have almost 600 backflow devices in the town of Abington. They do that. They do it twice a year. Like I said, it's DEP regulated. We have to do it. So again, we put a lot of this stuff, if we have the money in our undesignated, we'll take it out of that so it doesn't go into the budget and raise the rates.
How much is that one, Joe?
40,000 with the matching, well, it's not matching from Rockland. We end up getting 40 from Rockland to do theirs too. The meter replacement, we already went through. 75,000 from undesignated. The hydrant replacement, we already went through 25,000. Everything's from undesignated. The backhoe lease, we already went through that. The next one we put in was $25,000 with the like amount of Rockland to replace our treatment SUV. 2004 Ford Explorer. The treatment people have to go around. We have to take 12 samples in each town once a week, every week. Then we have to do 30 quarterly samples. They drive this vehicle around to take all these samples. Then we have to bring the samples down to the lab, which is down in Lakeville. So we do need a reliable car. Once we have the samples, the car breaks down. If the samples ain't refrigerated within 2 hours, then we have to redo them. It's just, we'll retire the 2004 and hopefully replace it. The next one would be $25,000 with the like amount from Rockland to buy our own paving equipment. Right now, anytime we do a dig in either town, we either have an outside contractor come in and pave it for us, prepare the trenches and pave them, or we work together with the highway department. Unfortunately, the highway department has enough going on where a lot of times, they're doing something and we have to bring in the outside contractor. We probably spend over $10,000 a year in each town. So by buying our own roller, trailer, and paving equipment, we have the men to do it. So it's going to save us money in the long run. The next one was the dump truck, $75,000 with the like amount from Rockland to replace the 2001 International dump. The dump truck actually that Abington owns is a 2011, still in great shape. The one we're replacing, we've already spent close to $10,000 this year just repairing. So something we have to move to. The next one would be $40,000 also matched from the town of Rockland. The purpose is sludge management program at all our water treatment plants. Once we process the water, whatever we take out of the water ends up in drying lagoons. Once it dries out, we have to dispose of it. Right now, a lot of it's going to the Bourne landfill, so we have to have it trucked down to Bourne. Eventually, the Bourne landfill is not going to take it anymore. We don't know where it's going from there. But we have to clean the lagoons out. 2 out of it, we have 6. We got to clean 2 of them out. Last time we did it, it was approximately $80,000. That's what we're going with on that. The next one is $100,000 with the like amount from Rockland for filter and pump upgrades. This will replace each plant, 3 plants. Each of them have 2 raw water pumps, which take the raw water from the reservoirs and puts it into the plant through the filtering system. We also have, one plant has 3 finished water pumps, one has 2 that pump it out into the system once it's done out of a clear well. These pumps are approximately $50,000 a piece. By the time, the pumps are probably 38,000. We just replaced one. By the time you have it installed and wired and everything else, it averages out to be around $50,000 a pump. So that's going to be spread out over the master plan to upgrade all the filters and all the pumps over the next 5 years. So we're putting in $100,000 from each town this year and see what we can get done on that. The next one, treatment plant. I have treatment plant infrastructure upgrades for $100,000 with the match of Rockland. This is the one we talked about in the capital plan for the treatment plant upgrades that are going to be in there every year. So between the treatment plant infrastructure upgrades and the filter and pump upgrades, hopefully within the next 5 years, we can bring these plants up to snuff. There's another article on the special that I'll get to once I finish this that kind of coincides with these. The last article we're putting in is $15,000, again with the like amount match from Rockland, to update our emergency response plan. This is a process DEP makes you have an emergency response plan for everything from tornadoes, hurricanes, contamination, terrorism, water breaks, treatment plant failures. We have to have an emergency response plan for all of it. You know, contacts, what you do when you contact DEP. That all has to be, this year we had to do a risk and resilient assessment of what would be at risk, and then the emergency response plan is gonna take it from there. That's something we have to have July 1st. I think we have 6 months to do it after that. And then last week, an emergency article come up that I got a hold of Sue to ask if we could get it in a special town meeting. $175,000 with the match amount of Rockland to buy 2 pressure filter vessels, which are going to be installed at Hingham Street Water Treatment Plant. DEP has regulated how we have to treat the water. We have to, these new regulations kick in April. So right now, we have to install these 2 filter vessels in order to meet these standards from DEP. Then it's kind of a Band-Aid right now. Eventually, we're going to have to, if basically the filter vessels are a pilot program. If the pilot program works and DEP accepts it, then we're going to have to actually redo all the filters in the treatment plant, probably to these same filters. The good news on that is yesterday we were awarded a $199,000 grant from DEP to design what we have to do to make this a permanent solution. So that's a good note. Although, I mean, besides we have to spend $350 to get the $199, but it adds it on the back end, you know. So that's basically all I got. And that'll still, with those articles, I think we'll still have 800,000 in undesignated savings. I don't know how this year is going to go with COVID, with the bill paying and how much we're gonna. Right now, we're right on track. So hopefully, knock on wood, we keep up. We're not as good as we did last year, but you know, it is what it is. So, any questions?
I have one comment. I mean, this is a lot of stuff. Is this, many of these, you said, many of these are repeat items year after year?
The cross connections, the meter, the hydrant replacement, the backhoe lease. Yeah, so probably half of them. Well, the sick time buyback is something that it's not every year because we don't have everybody
Right,
retired.
no, that's understood.
You know.
And the term undesignated, that's a fund you have that has monies in it that you pull
Correct.
from
Money,
to pay.
basically, last year, when I first took over last year, there wasn't very much in the undesignated. So saving the money from my budget last year gave us a pretty good cushion for this year. So these are just items that I have seen since I started that really need attention, and I figured that's where our money should go.
Okay.
I'm
Joe,
looking-
those last things you mentioned, all that group of things, is that part of capital planning or no? Is that funded through the designated fund, the undesignated? fund?
Every article from the water department is, we don't take any town money. Everything's from our funds that we bring in. Everything should be from our undesignated, which a lot of it's like systems development. If someone puts a development in and they have to do an 8-inch tap to run the main, and that's $80,000. It goes into this fund. Someone builds a house, systems development for like a 1-inch service into that house is $3,500. Then we have a conservation fee per bedroom. That all goes into our undesignated where we can do these capital articles.
Yep.
So, if a contractor comes in and puts a big development in, you might end up getting $250,000, and it goes in so we can do some of these capital improvements.
So it almost sounds similar to the golf, right? Where it's largely self-sustaining and the town is just voting to make sure that, we agree with the way you're spending the money.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
That's a good news. This is, I guess I could ask this to you after this meeting, but what are 6 lagoons? We have lagoons in Abington?
No, we have 3 treatment plants. We have the Hingham Street Water Treatment Plant in Rockland, over by the Home Depot. Our major treatment plant is in Pembroke, on Phillips Road, Great Sandy Pond.
Yep.
We're kind of unique. A lot of water departments, they buy their water from other towns, and we have 3 different plants. We have 22 employees, 8 distribution employees. We have treatment operators. These plants run 24/7, at least one of them. And we process the water. We pay for all the chemicals, the electricity, everything. We're not like the town of Whitman. They just buy their water off of Brockton. We have to sustain all this. That's why a lot of that money's going into these treatment plants. Our youngest treatment plant's already 45 years old. So, and with the environment in there, the chlorine, the chemicals, everything rots out.
Yep.
It's just a nightmare. But we do what we can do. So the lagoons, Steve, to answer your question, we have 2 in Pembroke. We have 3 over the Hingham Street plant. What they are basically are drying beds. It's an open bed. All the backwash, we call it, a sludge, gets pumped up to the lagoons. Once the lagoon's full, we move to lagoon number 2, let number 1 dry out. Once all the water and everything leaves the lagoon, you end up with, it's basically a mud. And once it dries out, it kind of looks like coffee grounds, but we never
Yep.
get it that dry. It's kind of a mixture of Jello and coffee when we truck it down to Bourne. We end up, actually we load dumpsters that go in, the trucks pick up, and they truck it down to Bourne. They're not swimming lagoons.
Okay, my first thought was Gilligan's Island.
Yeah,
So, okay, I understand better now.
we call them lagoons. They're basically storage, areas.
So these monies, almost all of them you've mentioned, I'm echoing now. I don't know if I can you hear me, but Rockland goes in and Rockland okays the same stuff every year.
Correct. I actually just got out of capital planning with Rockland right before this meeting. I had already met with them, but I had to go back in for that special article. And I've done Rockland Finance Committee and Abington Finance Committee already.
Sorry about that for a little bit. If I didn't have bad luck, I had no luck at all. Lost internet connection, so
Oh.
sorry about that. Any questions or further discussions on the water capital needs?
We actually voted you out while you were gone, Alex.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry,
of
Alex.
course.
Sorry.
Oh, well. I'll just get off. All right, all right. Thanks, Tim.
No, this is good. This is a lot of stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's reassuring. Oh, no, I'm going.
Sign language.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just gonna say it's good to hear that even though there's a lot here, it's not like the town of Abington has to pay additional out of pocket. It's just part of their undesignated fund. So it's one of those good ones that we go through
Right,
that.
that is good.
Like, yeah, no, it looks great. Yeah, go ahead and do it. Makes sense.
I was happy to hear Joe doesn't have a roof he needs repaired.
We could use one on a Hingham Street plant. We got a couple
Well, here we
buckets
go.
under, but
Here we go.
we need
You had
all
to
the
s-
water
you
we
had to
can
say
get, so
something,
we
Steve.
just push it into the reservoir when it comes into the building.
The lagoons down there, you just get straw and
There you
leaves
go.
and cover it up. Done.
All right. Any additional comments or questions or anything else, Joe? All right, hearing none. All right, so thank you, Joe. Thank you for joining us and sharing the Abington Rockland Waterworks joint capital needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, guys.
Right, awesome. Let me stop sharing. Okay, wonderful. On to our next agenda item, into old business. Prioritize needs based on exigence and available free cash or borrowing ability. Sue, did you have any update on the standing of available free cash?
Free cash for the general fund is only $77,000 this year because of our revenue decreases due to COVID. But the borrowing capacity, Sonia can talk about.
Perfect. You jump right to it.
So for the borrowing capacity, in terms of our statutory limits, we're well within our range. We actually have another $100 million that we could borrow for and still be legal. I don't recommend even coming close to that, but in terms of legality, we're in the clear there for borrowing for projects. The financial policy that Scott circulated with you guys, there was a section on debt and capital expenses that pertains to this group. The targets for capital expenses, which would be cash payments like from free cash plus all of your debt, is between 2 and 5% of the tax levy limit. Our tax levy limit this year is 37.6 million. So our total capital expenditures, you'd be looking at between 750,000 to about 1,750,000 in a year. Obviously, with the free cash number like we have, that's probably not going to be a realistic target. For general fund debt, which is debt that's not excluded. So most of these projects that we're talking about are not going to be excluded debt. The high school was an excluded debt project. For all of your general fund debt, the target is 1 to 2.5% of general fund revenues, which translates to about $550,000 to $1.4 million. And that's your annual payment for that year's debt service and interest. So if you have a project that we're gonna borrow 10 years for, in year one, you're only going to pay 1/10 of the principal plus the associated interest. So you could have quite a few projects on there. What I would recommend is not to have everything go on at once, because then in future years, as more projects come in, then you don't have room to add anything on. So it's better to space things out more gradually, keeping in mind how long you're borrowing for. So borrowing for equipment is usually a 5-year term, whereas if you borrow, for the roof, that's probably going to be 10, 20 years that you're borrowing for. So you can stagger things so that the equipment comes off and you add more equipment. And so things are coming on and coming off back and forth, over time. So there are ways to structure it so that the debt is not going, you're not having huge ups and downs year to year, and we have some budget stability there. Right now for fiscal year 21, our levy debt is only 127,000. So if we were to suddenly go up to, $500,000, that's money that's coming out of the operating budget. So those are concerns that the finance committee will also be weighing when they're determining what to actually fund, is that if we add a lot of projects, we're having to cut back on the operating budget in some way. So I don't know if that's helpful. I'm sure it's not very encouraging in a lot of ways, but it's good to have the numbers to really see what you're looking at and what those targets are and where we are right now, which right now our levy debt is pretty low, which is great for the town. But when we're looking at all these large projects coming up, we do have to consider where that money is going to come from year over year when we're paying those debt payments.
Thank you, Sonia. Very
No problem.
important.
Did I cover everything that you needed, Alex?
Yes, absolutely. Answered all my questions.
Is
Anyone
that, is that all in writing somewhere that I could see? Or are we gonna get something that has that information on it?
Sure, I can type that up and send it out.
I mean, I'm not asking for anything special. I mean, is there something that usually is available to Scott that is put together, or?
Well, that financial policy we've just worked on that. So you have that. As far as those actual numbers, no, that was just, literally got my notes here that I wrote down. So yeah, I'll type that up.
Okay, and I only asked that. I didn't understand all of it, and I just like to kind of go through and see what I understand and what I don't.
Sure.
Steve, so you kind of looking for like the debt schedule, so you can see what is excluded and what's not excluded, what's paid for by water, what's paid for by sewer, so you can understand where those payments are coming from.
That's a lot of information. I don't know whether I needed that much. Again, I'm just trying to understand. At this point, in all honesty, we've gone through so many different groups. There's so many needs out there. And if the first meeting, I left thinking we were 600 in debt as a town. We didn't have any money to fund any of these. Why are we meeting with these people? Now, I still don't know how to make the decisions going forward as to what we are going to fund, if any of these. I'm assuming we're going to fund some of them, and it's going to have to be through, taking loans out. I think. I mean, again, all the numbers you just went through, I jotted a couple of them down. I mean, do we have 1.4 million? Will we have 1.4 million? 4 million? Will we have? What will we have that we won't have to take any loans out? And then how do we decide what we're going to take loans out for? I think that's not to you, Sonia. Maybe it is, but to the group.
If I can add to, once we know what the top priorities are for the group, I can create some sample debt schedules to help you guys visualize what that would really look like in terms of dollars, what that interest would be, how long would you be borrowing. So I'm would like to get that set up for you guys once you have a better idea of where those priorities lie.
Okay.
I would appreciate that as well.
Awesome, thank you. That actually jumps right into our next agenda item, setting next meeting schedule, future discussions of draft capital plans, and caucus about the priorities of the capital planning committee. the selectmen are now going to meet in person. I think it would be great. And I know, Steve, you've offered it at Strawberry Valley to, have a meeting in person at Strawberry Valley. I was floating around the idea so when we caucus about prioritizing our capital plan and what we're going forward with, I thought perhaps we could have that in person. And I just wanted to speak to the board, see what everyone is okay with, what day or multiple days if we have to. Leave that out on the floor there.
Can we keep it Thursdays at the same time, even if we meet in person, or
Yeah, no,
how's that?
yeah,
I mean, I guess it's a question for Steve, right? If we decide to meet in person, does that time work for the golf course?
The golf course closes at, of course, dark, so 7 o'clock, I'd have to get a key to the place, but I could get a key. If we wanted to have it up there.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the time works for me, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And I would love to meet in person if everyone else is comfortable with it.
Whatever day that is, I will be early.
All
Hey,
right.
hey, Tim. Tim, can I ask you a question? What prompted you guys to switch to in-person?
I'm sorry, Chris.
What's prompting you guys as the Board of Selectmen to switch to in-person?
We just felt it was better to get the community to be able to show up in person.
So you can
into
have,
the meetings.
so you can have people show up, and you can have the public come to your meetings as well?
Right.
Oh, you can, okay, all right. I didn't know what Marty's rules are right now, so.
Oh, no, town hall's back open and, we're up to 25 persons after the 22nd, which is when our next meeting will be, so.
All right, yeah, so I mean, I get it. So I don't know, I mean, I can tell you, I don't think the school is going to in person. But I think we went back this way because it let more people be able to hear us. First of all, that was what we were getting a lot of complaints that people couldn't hear us during our meetings. Honestly, Alex, like I'll do whatever I can, but with, and Tim, I know I'm preaching to beyond the choir to you here, but with other things and with kids, this has become more convenient, honestly. So, I mean, even I suppose if some people meet in person, if you can still set up a Zoom and people can, you know what I mean? Anybody can almost join from anywhere. It's just
True.
maybe an ask if nothing else. So, I mean, I coach my kids baseballs. That's going to be starting soon. So, and things like that. So.
No, that's a very important point.
I mean, this is a little different too than the selectmen too. As the selectmen meetings, we have public hearings where abutters and neighbors have the right to stand up and speak. I think this is a little different. I don't, this really isn't a announced public hearings, and I don't think we have much of an audience right now. But maybe
I think you're right, Tim.
Yeah, looking at the YouTube views, I think we got 5 at our last meeting.
I didn't realize you were watching the ratings.
That's how he gets paid.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, there we go. Start that rumor up.
I'm not taking a paycheck. But no, actually, that's a good point. So with that being said, do we want to axe the whole idea of then meeting in person and keep it to via Zoom?
I mean, I don't know if we're going to.
I could go either way.
Yeah, either way. I mean, I think if it works, it works. I think just I'm pretty sure like you can make it where, I don't know, even if you guys are in person, you set up an Alex, you just start a Zoom meeting wherever you are and anybody can chime into it wherever you're sitting at that moment. I mean, I could be sitting next to you right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We could still be on Zoom at the same time. So obviously 6 feet away, right? So Marty's not here, but.
Yeah, I think some of the challenge with that might be arranging cameras, right? Because like I forget what the room's called, but in the town hall, there's cameras in multiple areas that focus on who's talking, and that makes a little more sense. But if we were to do a Zoom at the golf course, we might have a hard time arranging that so we can capture everybody.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought about getting it on film.
Yeah.
So with that said, I mean, let's go with Zoom next week. My only request would be, you know, I'm a paper person. And I hate to say that. You know, I'd like to have a couple of pieces of paper in front of me so that I could look at. So Sonia, if whatever you have, you could have that for the next meeting. And then someone's, well, I guess it's just getting a copy of the what the document you've been showing. And I can go down to town hall and pick that up, or I can pick that up somewhere.
Yeah, I can send that to you.
Okay, or just email
Yeah.
it.
Let's see. All right, so yeah, no, I'm comfortable with via Zoom. So with that being said, let's see, next. Because I
25th.
know we wanted to make sure we got, because I know we discussed this at our first meeting, talking about make sure we finalized our capital plan sometime before the end of the first week in April. So let's see, next meeting, let me just check. So is everyone all right with March 25th? So next Thursday, March 25th at 7 p.m.?
Sure.
Yeah,
Beautiful,
as of now, I'm good.
beautiful. All right, so with that being
And
said,
Scott's vacation's 1 week vacation, I assume.
Yeah, he'll be back next week.
awesome. All right, well, with that being said, I will hear any motions to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Joe makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Chris makes the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, unanimous. So the time being 8:14 p.m., Capital Planning Committee meeting has adjourned. Thank you.